Hello and welcome to the third video in the mini series of how to set up a horsebox hire business. In today's video, I am going to talk about the day-to-day reality of what it's actually like running this business. So we're going to cover a few mistakes that I made along the way, a few lessons that I've learned, and a few of the positives and negatives of running this business. So hopefully you can gain a broader understanding of what it's actually like. If you're new here, I am Christina. I am an equine business owner, horse owner and pregnant mum. If you missed the first two videos, do go check them out. I will link them in the description box below. In the first video, I spoke a little bit about my own journey in how I came to set up this business. In the second video, I go through what you actually need in order to set up the business, i.e. horsebox choice, insurances, all of the paperwork, etc., and other things that you need to consider. So yeah, this video is just finalizing the mini series and just hopefully giving you a better understanding of what it's actually all like. So without further ado, let's get into the video. One of the realities of horse transporting is that not every horse you transport will load well or travel well. Thankfully, I have a lot of experience loading lots of different horses now, and therefore I'm very confident in my loading skills and ability. However, when I first started out, this was something that did make me a little nervous. There was always a small part of me when driving to collect a horse that would just pray the horse was good to load so that I didn't have to deal with a tricky situation. But quite honestly, I kind of enjoy the challenge of it now. I've learned that most horses usually just need a little bit of patience, and I find it really rewarding when I manage to load the horse fairly quickly and am able to provide a positive travelling experience for that horse. Best way to deal with tricky loaders is to find out as much information as you can prior to securing the booking. This way you can factor in the additional time it may take you to load when quoting for a job. Here at KJD Horsebox Hire, I also have a clause in our terms and conditions, which essentially covers that any additional waiting time, such as loading time, will be chargeable. Not valuing and charging for my time was definitely a mistake I initially made when I first started out. So I'm sure this one won't come as a big shocker to you all, but one of the realities of running this business when offering a horse transport service is that you are sat in the horse box for many hours of the day, sometimes driving. Now, I actually love this. As a mum, and I'm sure any mum out there will relate to this, this has become a bit of me time. So I absolutely love just sitting in the horse box, driving along. I can listen to the radio, I can listen to a podcast, I can listen to an audiobook, or I can just simply have some thinking time. But it's basically my quiet time, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, if you're thinking of starting your own business, do ask yourself the question if you are willing to, whether you like driving or not really. If you do, great. If not, it's probably not the job for you. Now, obviously being on the road a lot, one of the downsides is that you have to deal with other drivers. Now, when people see that you are in a horse box especially, they assume that you're going to be driving really slowly, and a lot of the time they get quite impatient with you, and you get some drivers that try to overtake you. They like to cut in front of you on A roads or motorways. If there's an exit coming up, they like to nip in front of you because you've left a wider gap. When driving a horse box, you always want to give yourself more stopping distance. So usually there's a big gap in front of you to the car in front. So people like to nip into that gap, and then what they like to do is usually slam on their brakes very conveniently. So you need to be really aware of other drivers. You need to be hyper aware of other drivers and try to anticipate what they're going to do. So yeah, that's definitely a downside of driving the horse box, is pretty much just dealing with other idiots on the road. But the positive is that you get a lot of you time, which for me is fantastic. Another reality of running this business is understanding that it's not only the horses that you're interacting with, but the owners too. And you need to learn to show the same patience and understanding with them a lot of the time as you do with their horses. You have to remember, yard moves can be more stressful for the owner than the horse. Packing up and relocating can be a big deal for some people. Likewise, if you're taking someone to a lesson or a show, they may be really nervous about the event and may rely on you a bit for support if they're travelling alone. Without a doubt, the jobs that require the most compassion and understanding from you are usually those to a vet clinic. I've had lots of instances whereupon I've had the owner travelling along with me in the horse box, and quite frankly, they're just really worried or upset about the unknown fate of their horse. I always try my best just to offer support in the best way I can during those trips, but it is something to remember when running a horse transport business that a lot of the time the owners can require more support than the horses. Obviously, being pregnant now, I have had to limit the length of journey that I take on, because sitting in the horse box for hours on end just isn't comfortable for me at all at this point. I am 7 months pregnant, so you can imagine. So actually that leads me on to one of the downsides of running this business, is that I am self-employed. I am the only driver in the business. It might be a little bit different. I mean, it would be different if I had somebody that worked for me and was able to take on those job roles that I can't do at the moment. But I'm in a position where it's just me in the business. So I have had to take quite a big pay cut because of the jobs that I'm turning down. So that is definitely one of the downsides of the business, is that being self-employed, it is just you. So unless I am out on the road driving, then money is not being made from a driven transport service. Now, I do have the self-drive hire service to fall back on, which is so fantastic, because it doesn't matter if I'm pregnant or not. I can just about clean a lorry. So the horse boxes can still go out on self-drive hire, and I can still make money from that side of things. But to be completely honest with you, the reality is that providing a driven transport service is far more financially lucrative than providing a self-drive hire service. Self-drive hire service is convenient, and you are essentially getting paid for not doing as much work and not putting as much time in. But with the driven transport service, you are able to charge a lot more money and therefore earn a lot more money. So something to consider when starting this business and being a self-employed person is you want to try and factor in those periods of time where perhaps you might be going on holiday and you won't be working, or having a baby and you won't be working as much. So life events like that you need to take into consideration, and just try to plan ahead and try and save as much money as you can, so that when you do have those quieter moments, you are financially secure enough to be able to navigate through them successfully. Without a doubt, the biggest reality surprise and problem that I've faced since starting a horse transport business is how expensive mechanical bills are. It's inevitable when running a vehicle-based business that you will incur vehicle maintenance costs. Now, these can range from a couple of £100s to thousands. The worst bill I've ever had totaled around £8,000. A very long story short, there were a few problems which led to the horsebox needing a new engine. Other major costs can be around the £4,000 mark for a new gearbox, etc. I try to remedy this issue by purchasing as new a chassis as possible when purchasing a new horse box, and by having the boxes regularly serviced and conducting daily fluid level checks, etc. But the mechanical issues and bills can certainly be your biggest expense and are definitely your biggest headache. Having a box off the road will inevitably lead to cancellations and loss of income. Luckily, my business is now in a position where I have 2 horse boxes, so if one is out of action, I can usually juggle bookings around with the other one to avoid cancellations. But do be warned, mechanical bills can be incredibly detrimental to your business. So if starting out yourself, do your best to buy as new a chassis as possible and ensure you stay on top of regular maintenance duties. And get yourself a reliable mechanic. So you'll find that if your horse box is hired out, a lot of the time it will come back with damage. This is an example. I had a roof vent just knocked off at the top. So yeah, what else have we got in here? This one's not too bad actually. Broken tie ring. Not many scuff marks in here. But a lot of the time you get horses pawing with their front legs, so you get chip marks at the front. Matting always gets damaged. You can see here at the bottom, kick marks. So you're always going to get cosmetic damage a lot of the time. Some damage is more serious than others. This horse box is actually in much better condition than my other one. So there we go. Examples of damage on the outside. Rear lights often get hit. Corners. It's where people don't realise that their back end comes in at a different angle to their front end. So quite often we get damage on the rear of the horse boxes. This damage is a perfect example of that. So I very quickly had to find myself an amazing repair guy who works his absolute magic on restoring the horse boxes to looking their best. One lesson I learned was to ensure I take a £500 holding deposit from self-drive hirers and state in the terms and conditions of hire that they are liable for all damage related costs. I think I mentioned in the last video actually that one of the most common damage related things is that these ramp struts get knocked a lot of the time here. Sometimes they can get bent and actually even knocked off, so I always keep spare ramp struts. Top tip, if you have a horse box that's going out on self-drive hire and you have struts on the outside, keep a lot of spare because you will need them. So one lesson I learned was to get stickers with the vehicle dimensions and stick the sticker above the driving steering wheel so that it's easily visible, and hopefully that will help avoid drivers driving through places which are too narrow or too low. One of the hardest realities of running this business is that not all days are good days. These clips were taken from a late night vet clinic run I did a few weeks back. It was for a horse on our yard that took a bad turn with colic. Colic is essentially an abdominal issue. Unlike many animals, horses cannot vomit, so blockages or gas build-up have nowhere to go, and some forms of colic can quickly become life-threatening. Unfortunately, this horse never made it back home again, and so you do have to prepare yourself for those trips that don't always have a happy ending. I'm going to finish up by talking about one of the not-so-obvious realities of running this business: admin. It's easy to forget when thinking about becoming a horse transporter that you're also running a business, and this requires a lot of admin. From managing a website, bookings, advertising, social media, customer service, maintenance appointments for the horse boxes themselves, insurance renewals, the list goes on. So yes, you can be out on the road a lot of the time, driving, handling horses and meeting new people, but there is also the admin side of the business to run too, and this can be very time consuming and requires you to fulfill multiple job roles if you're the only one in your business. I talk a lot about these struggles in video 1 of this mini-series, so do check that out if you haven't already watched it. So to summarise, running a horse transport business certainly has its ups and downs, but personally I still absolutely love my job and wouldn't change it for the world. If you're UK based and are thinking of becoming a horse transporter yourself, or perhaps running a horsebox hire business, do check out our franchise opportunities, which I'll link in the description box below. In the meantime, please do like this video and subscribe to my channel. It's my plan to do a few more day in the life vlogs over the next couple of weeks, but please do let me know if this is the sort of content that you're enjoying or if there's anything specific you'd like me to cover. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Bye!